Union and community begin with the same word, and there's a reason for that. Jesus was all about table fellowship.
Maybe that will get you. I don't have it.
My mother.
German.
My mother is vaguely Scottish.
Yes.
Pauline Love Lomax, Vertel's mom.
Her nickname was Gooey, not Grandma.
And that was an extraordinary lady.
And she liked that because she didn't think of herself as a grandma.
And Kate, she was famous for her green bean casserole, and she always she nudged it a little bit.
Well, your grandmother has
Joan
everything
brought
under
Waldorf
control.
salad.
Daughter right now is 17, almost 18 years old.
Could take an apple and a knife and do the whole peel in one piece.
Yes, she was a piano music major. Library science was her minor.
She did it every single time.
Her livelihood was library science.
You know, the Methodist Church in Winmac was a big part of my grandparents' life.
Okay. She was actually the first African American librarian hired in Chicago back in the old days. So, you know, her paperwork had to be in order.
Yes.
Oh yes.
So we don't know the origin of the recipe, but it goes back a couple generations.
I mean, it was a lot. There's a lot of stories in the Bible with him, eating with people, being in people's homes for meals. Of course, the Last Supper is a community meal.
Not all recipes get passed around, and you couldn't get this one for 50 years. So there was finally a break in the security.
What I brought was my Aunt Debbie's coleslaw. The thing that makes it a little special is we put one head of purple cabbage. It makes it prettier. She learned it from her mother. And she couldn't remember if her mother had learned it from her Aunt Bertha, which would have been her great aunt and my great great aunt. It gets the kind of flavor in there. They like it a little stronger. Put a little bit of mustard, a little bit of mayo, and a lot of pepper, actually. Who was one of the first women here in Gary. She came and opened a boarding house back when it was just like U.S. Steel. Yeah, a little kind of horseradish too. And if you want to doctor it up, you can put a little cayenne in there if you like that more. Or if it came from her mom's mom, who would have been my great grandmother, and she was the head cook down at Purdue.
Great aunt, first women.
Yeah, so I guess technically I can say I'm like a fifth generation Gary. I think. Yeah. Weird, right?
My father got the place where I grew up. Corn was in season. She made it all the time. She used corn right out of the garden. She used fresh corn. I used canned corn. But I bet that does make a difference. It does make a difference, yes. For this recipe, it called for a 10 by 15 pan.
There was something that I picked up from her, my mother. I don't know how I even did it, how I even figured this out. But she throws cloves in chicken soup.
It was a Seder meal that he had with his friends, and he wants us to eat that meal together as a community. It's meant to be not only an individual spiritual experience, but also a community experience where we become one body.
I was 25, and one of the first things that I did in the church was I went to the church camp, and I was an assistant cook. I peeled a lot of carrots.
After his resurrection, he shows up on the beach and makes breakfast for the disciples.
And that is where I met Matt Diltz's wife, Jeannie. And she was a counselor, and Matt was a counselor too. And we had just started going to the church. And we bonded there. We were in the same house. We were the adults. And we had a lot of teenagers. And it was a lot of fun.
So table fellowship and gathering with friends around food was important to his ministry then as it is now.
Let's do it for Lard.
Coat the beef in flour by shaking the cubes in a bag. Is that what you put flour?
Yeah. They don't play games. They say what's on their mind. And what's on their mind is bringing kids together in our name, in Gary, to get together and play instead of having to run here and there. And we don't need to grow up not knowing each other.
Right. Growing up in southern Indiana, it's like growing up in the South, really, where food is a huge part of every family gathering.
Beef stroganoff. And that was a family favorite from my grandmother.
We'll have pictures of everybody gathered for the family picture at the event, and also have a picture of the table with the food on it.
Yeah.
That's also a star of the party,
She had a lot of good beef recipes because her husband, my grandpa, worked for Swift & Company in Chicago.
To me, that's the perfect elixir is chicken noodle soup.
So we always lucked out when we went to their house for dinner.
It's special to me because it represents summer, which is always happy.
It sounds crazy, but I think the clothes make a big difference.
Green bean casserole, which is a standard, kind of a staple thing.
They have this amazing old recipe for chicken and noodles, and we only get it once a year.
I lived in Miller till I was about 6, and then we moved away. We'd always come back in the summers, which I always loved. We usually came up for the 4th of July, actually to stay with the Diltzes. And our families would get together, have big cookouts, and that was always a staple.
I don't have like a strong family affiliation, but it just makes a difference to me because it's kind of like a secret I discovered. It's not like my mother said, oh, let me show you this special thing.
Oh, chicken and noodles. It's a Winnemac recipe. All the Diltzes are from Mac, and there's a lot of Diltzes in Winnemac.
I mean, somehow I figured maybe I was sick as an adult. I mean, never in childhood, but as an adult. And I thought, I think as an adult I found out just by accident.
Older people just barely decided to share that recipe.
It's home. It reminds me so much of her. It reminds me so much of my family and of all of those gatherings.
Mom was like, well, that's not really that important. This isn't important. There's nothing that's really that important. So I guess I kind of like secreted this clove thing,
This is Aunt Kate. This is the famous green bean casserole lady who always made the green bean casserole. Kate's house always smelled like something fresh was cooking or baking.
The Methodist Church in Winnemac was a big part of my grandparents' life, and all the aunts and uncles.
She was just an absolute love of a person. Her little secret was to use evaporated milk instead of regular milk.
And I'm always like throwing clothes in there, and my husband's like, what are you putting those clothes in there for? I mean, it's just my secret.
So yeah, I guess that's interesting. Just in a way, yeah. I guess it is kind of a church recipe.